Welcome back to the Maritime Lemonade Stand, back from 6 days offshore, heading down to Florida. By the way, this is the third time I've recorded the show. First time was on the boat, you couldn't hear. Second time, I looked like I had gone 6 days without drinking and then was able to drink. And so hopefully the third time's going to take. So yeah, if you remember the last show, I went with my best friend Don, 70 years old, on his 46-foot boat Minerva, the same boat that he circumnavigated in a few years back. The adventure started right here in Oriental, North Carolina, a town of 899 people. Walked up, asked permission to go on the boat, something that a lot of people don't do, and you need to ask permission to go on somebody's boat. Don gave me the quick tour of his baby, stopping, of course, to show me his most favorite spot.
My favorite part of the boat, my dance deck.
Oh, and Don likes to dance. Check him out here at a party a few weeks ago.
Oh, keep your eyes on the road, your hands upon the wheel.
Oh, Don likes to party. Anyway, so we headed out across the Neuse River, kind of on our way to Morehead City, where we hung a right and headed down towards Cape Canaveral. And what did we see 10 minutes into our voyage? The harbinger of good luck for all sailors, dolphins on the bow. And did I film them? Not really.
There we go.
I got so excited, the first time seeing dolphins on the bow that I guess I hit the record button early, and then when I saw them, I hit the record button again, which technically stopped it, but I thought it was going. Anyway, doesn't matter, because about 20 minutes later, another gift from Poseidon, dolphins on the bow. And was I able to film them? No, I was not. Same thing, hit the record button too early, got too excited. I'm like a dad in 1986 with like a little beta cam, and when you get back from your family vacation, the only things you have on it are him going, squeak, 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 squeak. Okay, guys, 3, 2, 1. Anyway, first day was wonderful, just out there, away from land. Don cooked the most amazing meal. I mean, I'm eating better on Don's boat than I do here on my own boat. Some salmon, some couscous, some spinach. Woke up the next morning, absolutely gorgeous morning. I mean, the sun was out, the sails were out. We were cruising at about 7 knots, I think, which is basically unheard of. I think this little boat can top out at 5. And I just sat there and just enjoyed it, and finally we're sailing. This is what it's like in my adventure, but it's so close, and I didn't realize I was sitting next to the extractor fan with the diesel, which happened to be broken, meaning I was huffing diesel, meaning I was the sickest I have ever been in my life. We're talking diesel and 5, 6, 7 foot waves. I mean, that's like being on the tilt-a-whirl for 2 days. With no end in sight. I couldn't crawl into bed because the motion of the boat inside was even worse. And so I sat outside in the cockpit. I threw up inside the cockpit. I pooped in the cockpit. I peed in the cockpit. I refused to leave for 30 hours, which was hell in itself. But you have to realize that Don, he kind of brought me along for help. He brought me along for a little bit of muscle. He's 70, and so for 30, I would say even closer to 40 hours, while I was sick, immobile, disabilitated, he had to pull the entire watch, which just what an absolute superstar, and I can't speak highly enough for him. I mean, look at this guy. He would come out occasionally and try to talk to me and remind me that this is kind of a normal part of sailing, and I was just like, I don't want to talk about it, Don. Blah. And then he was like, oh, have some bread with the crust cut off. I was like, I don't want any bread, Don. Blah. Then he just kind of came out going, you going to sleep here in the rain in the cockpit? And I was like, yes, Don, I'm going to sleep here in the rain in the cockpit. Think about how I should have bought a motorcycle. Blah. But Don was just amazing and just was bold and accepted the responsibilities without complaint. Okay, man, that's a little bit over dramatic, but I'm sorry, I was raised on Hemingway. The sea was dark and cold and spoke like a man of conviction. I lay in the cockpit, having gone 12 rounds with a lethal combination of diesel and motion, and appeared like a matador whose aim and preparation had not been true. Fortunately, Don was there. Don was a good captain. He was a kind captain, and he took on the work of a full crew with honor and integrity. His view towards the ocean reminded me of my friend Carlos in the war, who would look at his enemy and say, I respect your ability to kill me, but I do not fear you, sir. And it was a good trip. Anyway, 2 days later, it went back to the trip I had imagined, just slow days of hanging out and reading. And sometimes we wouldn't even have wind, which meant we had to wait it out or motor, and we did both. And that waiting was something I had to get used to. And then you wait, and all of a sudden, when the wind comes, you're still going incredibly slow by any other standards. So it's a mindset that I have to get used to. A couple days after that, we saw a little gray speck. Don was able to announce our arrival.
Land ho!
And how cool is this? The little gray speck that we saw in the distance happened to be the Kennedy Space Center. And wouldn't you know it, as soon as we turned the boat starboard to head towards Cape Canaveral, what came out of the water? Dolphins. And did I get the shot this time? Yes, I did. And not to get all Douglas Adams on you, but I think they knew it was a good sign. So yeah, like I said, 6 days, 5 nights offshore, learned a hell of a lot, but mostly it was just getting in the mindset of a true captain. You know, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I ran aground and I was so embarrassed and I had to call the tow company. Don ran aground 3 times before we got to Morehead City, and it wasn't even a big deal. He went there, we got stuck, he went, oh, and he backed up, and he went to another place, oh. So to be able to just kind of get into that acceptance of things happening was really important for me. And without knowing it, he really taught me a lot. But I guess the biggest thing is what I learned is how much I still have to learn. You know, I like the ocean. I didn't have the respect for the ocean, but you have to realize, I mean, the boat's keeling over, and there's the water, and that's death. If you were to fall in, if I were to fall in, anybody were to fall in, that's death. And yeah, I think I do a decent job on this show, kind of showing you the lifestyle of it all, but I mean, I'm trained for this. This is my background, is to tell a good story, and I think, you know, forced bravado or faux bravado, if you will, with kind of an underlying thirst of need for validation does not a good captain make. So, you know, needless to say, I got my ass handed to me on this trip, and that was just as a co-captain. So I learned a lot, but like I said, I need to stop finishing my work at the end of the day and having some wine and watching a movie or reading a non-sailing book. I mean, this is something that I do really need to start taking more seriously than I have. But it's good. I mean, it's really good. It's a trip I needed, and you know, we're a few weeks away actually from me leaving kind of on my own trip. So I'm excited, but I still have a lot to do. So I should probably get to it. See you next week. When I say sea, you say trial. Sea works better in bigger sporting events, but whatever. I was excited. 10 minutes into my maiden voyage, sea trial number 1, and I'm stuck, and you just have to laugh.